Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I am Tim Talixon, Director of Intelligent Process Automation Sales at Hyland Software, and today's topic is going to be Hyland RPA 201. And of course, that means it's a little bit more of an advanced course. Hopefully, you may have had the opportunity to view the previous webinar, which is Hyland 101. They really focused in on some of the terminology, some of the use cases, its place in the technology landscape today, and maybe a little bit about where it's going. Today's topic is really more about the technology. It's about taking a deeper dive into the software itself, talking about how Hyland RPA and Hyland OnBase can work together. We did a little bit of a demo of that in the previous session, but we'll maybe show a little bit in configuration how all that works. And then some really good information about how you can get your hands on the software so that you can test drive it. You can access a 60-day trial of the software. And when I say trial, it's full-blown software. It's got everything in there. It's not like some scaled-down version or anything. And then we're going to talk about how to get some help from Naviant, some help from Hyland working together to give you a little bit of an RPA consult to help maybe pick the right use case and get going down the road. These are the four pieces of Hyland RPA. So there's actually four software programs that make up the program called Hyland, the product, Hyland RPA. And we're really going to focus in on the first two today. And that is the RPA Analyst for analyzing and documenting business processes. I'm going to show you how that works. And then the RPA Designer. And that is where you do the bulk of the configuration, building the bots. You can test run them in that environment and work through some of the, maybe misconfigurations or bugs you might introduce in it as you kind of move along, like any other configuration tool. The run piece, the conductor as we call it, really just runs in the background. I'm going to give you a little peek at that too and just kind of show you how that works, but totally runs in the background. And then Manager is a console of when you've got this up and running in an enterprise environment and you've got multiple bots running on multiple machines and lots of processes being automated. You use Manager to monitor that dashboard and really keep a view of how things are going production level wise. So you may also notice that I am running all of this. What you're seeing on your screen is a virtual machine that I've got loaded on my local laptop here. And that just gives me a little bit more control over the environment that I have here. I've got a full-blown OnBase system running in here. I've got RPA installed in here. I've got access to the outside world, so I can pull up websites and web pages and do things like that. So you might notice that a little bit as we go here. So first thing I'm going to do is walk you through the Analyst tool and show you how we would record an RPA process. So super simple use case that I'm going to throw at you here is use the bot. I'm going to use the robot to launch the browser, navigate to the right home page, click the button to sign in, just like here. Add in my username and my password, and then navigate to a few screens within here. So that's the job of we're going to use the bot. Now, it's a super simple scenario, right? Launch a browser, navigate into a site, authenticate, do all those things. I'm going to use Community as our conversation piece to do this, but this totally could be an enterprise level piece of software that you're looking to automate, right? You're going out to an external website and authenticating in because you need to do a credit check on somebody, or you need to do some sort of a search to find information. You're going into your ERP system or one of your HR systems, and you're using the bot to automate that process. The process itself for our conversation here is not really the important part. It's how we use the tools to automate the keystrokes and the clicking and the navigating and all of that sort of stuff. So I'll throw a little bit of a imagine along with me at you here as we go through this, but that's just the simple tool because it's something I think everybody can kind of. So I'm going to bring up the Analyst tool here in the background. I'm going to go ahead and sign out of this one more time. You can see that loading. And what Analyst does is it allows me to, we'll go ahead and start a a new session here, this toolbar is going to pop up, and you can even just see as I sort of move around the screen just a little bit, you're going to see some colors change, right? And really what's happening is the analyst is working through the Windows API, and it is seeing everything in this environment, okay? I'm going to pause this just quick so I can bring up this screen and kind of turn it back on again. And if I were to start working within the software and navigating around in here, what the software will do is record all of those clicks, all of those data entry points, all of those things that I'm going to kind of walk through. So I'll go ahead and start that process right now, and we'll just kind of navigate through Community, and you're going to see that it records a bunch of the steps that I go through here. So first thing I'm going to do is click on the Sign In button, and it's going to say to me, hey, if you really want Analyst to capture all of this stuff, then go ahead and let me launch the browser to get started with. And that's what it's going to do here first time. So now you can see Chrome is being controlled by automated software. So what I'm going to do here is, and I bet this is going to work for me this time. I'm feeling encouraged. One more little guy here, because I had my machine set up for German. We'll bring up Community here, and now it's going to follow me through this process. So I'll go ahead and click on Sign Into the Profile. And in this case, it's doing exactly as I had hoped it would do. I will go ahead and enter my email address in here. Right now, I'll actually go ahead and type that in. You know, I've been doing this so long, I have an old school email address of OnBase.com. That's what my password is, my username is for here. And then I will type in my password, which I believe I remember, and I'll go ahead and sign into the software. And we'll kind of pause it right there, right? Because what I'm going to do is end that and finish it. So really all I did was automate a few steps there. I launched the browser, navigated to a web page, entered in my email address, entered in my password, and clicked sign in. So that was like 5 steps in that process. You think about it, that's really not doing an awful lot, right? It's not a big process, but it involves a lot of discrete steps in there. And what the software did was capture all that for me in 2 explicit pieces. First was that one screen where I had to go and click on the go to the login screen button, and then the second one in which we're looking at right here. So this was the first one, right? All I did was click on that guy. And this one here was I navigated to a couple of more fields and did click, 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 right? And then it would take me to my login screen. This part can be used as documentation. I can export this out to a number of different formats. I can dump it to a PowerPoint that I could maybe use with a group of people to review the process and say, hey, did we get this right? Is it correct? Or I can dump it to a PDF or anything like that. The other thing that I can do, and this is a very helpful part, is I can dump that sequence of clicks and keystrokes out as a configuration file. I'll throw it right on my desktop, that we would then use in the next step in Designer, okay? So you don't really have to start from scratch when you're designing an RPA process. You can actually have a user go through the normal sequence of how they operate with a piece of software, and the software and the RPA software, the Analyst tool, will record that and begin to build your configuration on the fly for you, okay? I'll go ahead and save this just as a test, just in case we want to go back to it. We can save that to the desktop also. And then let's go ahead and clean up, log out of everything, make sure we're out of everything. Okay. The next thing, so there on my desktop is our process file, which was the starter configuration that I'm going to go ahead and use in Designer. And then this was our recording file. So if I wanted to go back in and look at that documentation piece or make some modifications to it and redump the configuration file, I can go ahead and do that too. But the second part of what we want to walk through here is that configuration in the RPA Designer itself. which is really designed for the business analyst who is going to be not only configuring but putting into production RPA bots processes. And as I would jump into the software here, I've got a number of different options of different types of default projects I could start. I'm not going to use any of those. I'm going to go open right from our desktop that file that we shared. And let's give it a second here to kind of go through. And if there's anybody who's been doing some development work, comfortable doing some development work, this environment may look pretty familiar to you. A point and click kind of environment where we can go ahead and map out these processes. Just give it a second to churn away here. All right. Now, it brought my configuration file in and laid that out for me. I want to show you exactly how it does that. And then I'll talk a little bit more about the tools that are available for you here and so on. And then we're actually going to click on run, and we're going to have the bot do the things that we manually did in the first step, which was launch the browser and log in and do all those good things. All right. Got to be patient with software sometimes, I think. All right, here's our environment. On the left are all the different types of activities that I could drag into my flowchart here in the middle, or my workflow activity. And on the right are some of the properties and things that I could set and control about them. Not going to take too much of a deep dive to do like a training level course, but I'll come back to some of those activities in a moment. But this here, run one, was the item that we recorded with Analyst, and I'm just going to bring that right into my environment here. And I don't have any variables or anything like that that I need to link to a larger part of the process. But if I did, I would go ahead and do those there. I'm going to drill down into this, and we'll take a look at some of the actual configuration that it sent our way. So the first thing it said was, well, we've got to go ahead and open Chrome, okay? And the next thing that it had me doing was opening up that web page, and then going ahead and we'll go into this one here, the second one, where there are some steps in here. So I left-clicked onto that email address field, entered the address, left-clicked onto the password field, entered the password, and then left-clicked on the sign-in. It recorded all those steps, took little screenshots to start building that documentation as we go, and kind of built out that sequence for me. Another way to really look at this that I think is helpful, and again for maybe a development-minded type person, is I can look at the flow chart here in the outline, in which, again, it's going to open Chrome and then open these different pages, and then within here, it's going to go ahead and let's go navigate down to that one. Got my series of left clicks along the way here that I went through. And again, this could be a much larger process. It could be a number of different applications, just kind of let your mind expand there a little bit. But recording all of that stuff built the configuration for us. But there are a couple things that I would have to go in here and check. What I'm going to do is, like they do in all good cooking shows, is I'm going to bring up a recent project, one that I already went and configured, that I know kind of works foolproof. I don't need to hit any more snags, but we'll bring up a properly configured configuration file that I have. It actually goes a couple steps further. It's going to go ahead and bring up the window. That's never good to get in a demo. It's going to bring up the window. It's going to log in to the software, and then it's also going to navigate out to the RPA Community page, and then go to the community forum in there. I got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping this kind of works for us here. But we're going to click on run, hands off the keyboard, got them up in the air. It's launching the browser automatically. It's going to go ahead and probably bring it up to a full screen and then click on that sign in button. You can see in the background there, the software bot was sort of running as that command line looking window. It was doing what was necessary to control the window. So enter in my username, my password, click sign in, again, hands off the keyboard. And in our test environment, it's got some delays built in to kind of run a little slow here. Navigate out to our community, and the last thing it should do is highlight forum and go over to that screen to let you read some posts or let you enter some posts or things like that. So that was our execution log, all the steps it went through in the process and so on. I will get that out of our way so we can go back to that screen and see that. So automating, the authentication process into an application and a bit of navigation in there. Super simple to do. You can use the recorder to do that, or you could manually go ahead and do these steps also. And you'll see under some of my favorites and recently used, these objects here, I'll go back to properties. These objects are what we would use to control the environment around us, right? So the first thing I'm telling it to do is open a browser window. And if I drill down into that guy, that's the address that I threw at it, right? And then these were the steps as part of that process that I went in there. I'll even go down into the last one here and see that was the last time where I said, go ahead, click an element on the screen, and that element was that forum button that took us into the user forum, okay? And if I go up one level, we'll see a couple of more sequences of things. And this is the piece that I had recorded with the analyst here. What I did was set the email address or the username, if you will, on that page as my email address. I set the text to enter the password. What I actually used in this case was, rather than just having my password in there, I set a variable and that passed the password onto it. And that really gives you a good way of controlling who has access to that information, or should that password change on a regular basis. It's not hard-coded configuration in there. It's a variable that could be set by user. And then I went ahead and clicked on that other element there to navigate in. So along the left-hand side are all of the different, like I said, activities that control the environment around me. I can have it do things like press hotkeys, navigate to web pages, set text. We could even invoke C# to maybe make a call to another web service from some other application and bring that data back. There's really just sort of an endless level of things that you can do controlling those software applications. There are also, and this is a very common use case for RPA, there's also a really nice integration into Excel and Word. And the Excel one comes up an awful lot because people generally have a lot of use cases like this. I need to go into a HR system, ERP system, payable system, extract a whole bunch of information out and start building rows in a spreadsheet so I can later analyze that information. Or when I'm done analyzing it, I've got to take that information from a spreadsheet and pump that back into some other system because that's the data that needs to go back in there. So it's very common to use a bot, to use RPA, to manipulate that spreadsheet, work with the data that's in there, and you don't have to do things like count the number of cells to click left and click right. You can use some of the native functionality of Excel because there's a tight integration already built into that application. Makes sense, right? Because it's a very common use case there. So let me kind of do a little time check and kind of review what we've done so far. So far today, we've used two pieces of the RPA software. We used Analyst to record a screen, and then we used Designer to go ahead and look at the configuration, run that configuration, test it out, and do those things. The other thing I would like to just bring up for you here would be the RPA Manager, okay? And again, this is your dashboard that sits in the background and lets you know how many processes are running, what the current status of them are, and where any maybe error conditions exist that you as an administrator would want to know about and take control over to get them back up and running. What I do want to do is one more piece in configuration, and that is, I'll bring up OnBase Studio. And in our previous demo or previous webinar, the Hyland 101, we showed the OnBase workflow automatically reaching out to a web page and pulling back information from a site. And what was really happening there was a document moved into a workflow queue, and then as that item got into a certain life cycle and queue, it started the process of doing some system work on that document. That document had some keywords and things like that. And so what we were doing was taking some of the keywords from that document and dropping them into some properties, right? And then simply using another workflow task to call a simple script that passed that information over to the bot. And then the bot took it from there. It went ahead and navigated to, launched the browser, navigated to the site, pulled up a bunch of information, and then the bot itself spoke back through the API to OnBase to update the keyword information on that document, if you remember that piece about it. So just wanted to give you a little idea of underneath the covers. This is a little bit on the OnBase side now of how it could speak to a bot. Today, we're using a little bit of scripting to do that, but as we move forward, these are going to become standard rules and actions inside of workflow that allow you to very configurably reach out to the RPA process and then pass information back and forth. If you're interested in learning more about Hyland RPA, you want to start getting your hands on it. Hopefully that's the case. You're taking a little more advanced 201 class here. Maybe you've got some use cases in your mind already about how you want to apply this. Maybe you just want to get into the configuration and play with it yourself a little bit more, or maybe you just want to take some classes and learn a little bit more about it. If you navigate over to training.hyland.com and you do a search on RPA, we've got about 8 or 9 classes up there already, more coming. A good number of them are e-learning courses that you can take when you want to, when the time fits for your schedule. But we also have a 3-day instructor-led RPA developer course that could be very interesting for some of the the really technically minded folks out there. And this walks you through all aspects of the tool, setting up the environment, doing it in production, hooking it into OnBase, all of those sort of things. So training for this is, as I said, readily available. The second thing that I want to talk about is try.hyland.com. It's another website that we have in which our customers can go and try out pieces of the software. And Hyland RPA is also available in this environment. So if you were to navigate to this page on try.hyland.com and click the Launch Demo Lab button, you will get just the exact same environment that I have been using, a virtual machine environment hosted in the cloud with all of the software already installed and configured, in which you can play around with and you can learn. So things that you learn in the training class, you could go right into that demo lab environment and continue to explore there. And if that doesn't quite fit your needs or where you want to go, you can also navigate out to our website and download the software yourself and install the Analyst and the Designer in your environment and begin to mock up a use case, much like I was doing there. Now, I was doing, again, something simple, just going to connect into Community, but if you wanted to connect data from your ERP system to your CRM system or pass for things from OnBase back and forth, you can go ahead and do that too. So the training is available, the hands-on environment, the hands-on lab environment is available for you, and the ability to grab that software and download it into your own environment and play around with that is available. And the last thing I wanted to make sure that we talked about was Naviant has been gracious enough to work with us to get some of our team members together with your teams to really look at where some high-value opportunities could be in your organization. So the best way to, if you're interested in this and you're interested in working more with Naviant, is just reach out to your account manager, and we'd be more than happy to get something scheduled and set up where we could talk about your processes, your use cases, your automation goals, and the environment that you hope to build in the future with some of these great tools. Covered an awful lot there. Again, my name is Tim Talixon. with Hyland Software. I thank you for your attention. We did get a little deep in the weeds there with the technology, but hopefully that was it opened up some thoughts for you about how you can take this software, bring it to your own world, and really start improving some of your processes. My email address is just tt@hyland.com. If you got any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Share any feedback you have. Thank you.